Crime is everywhere and consistently on the rise. Quick and easy cases are solved daily, but what of those other cases? The ones that have gone cold with no new leads or information. The famous serial killers have been captured and made public. But what of those still on the loose? Or even worse, still killing? Welcome to the realm of darkness. Your host, Reeni and Ashley, will be your guides into the mysterious world of true crime cases and stories. Here are your hosts, Reeni and Ashley.
Hi everyone, welcome to Realm of Darkness. It's just me, Reeni, tonight. Ashley's doing whatever it is that she does on vacation this evening, but I hope you all are having a wonderful Thanksgiving. Tonight we are going to be I will be talking about the Craigslist killer. Um, I don't know if you guys have seen the Lifetime movie. I did, and that's how I found out about the Craigslist killer, to be honest with you. So kind of dug a little deeper into that. Great movie if you're into Lifetime. But let's kind of dive into that tonight. Um, so we're going to talk about a guy named Philip Markoff. Um, he was from Boston. Well, I can't say he was from Boston. I'm sorry. He was actually from New York. They described him as basically a well-mannered person. He was brilliant. Um, he came from a normal family. His parents did divorce. He went to live with his dad, and his brother went to live with his mom. But I mean, again, there was like a normal childhood. But everybody, like I said, described him as normal, bright. He kind of kept to himself. Um, he grew up in a small town. He was well behaved. Um, he was, active in extracurricular activities. Um, it was just kind of weird. He was just like a normal person. But the problem is when he went to med school, um, in Boston. But there was something dark lurking behind all of it. And I'm sure, I don't want to say that it was stress, as far as why he did what he did. I'm sure being in med school, anyways, was hard enough. But he met a girl when he was in med school, Megan McAllister. They dated for some time. They got engaged. They moved in together. Um, it's kind of one of those things like you move in, and think that you know somebody, but maybe you technically do not know the person that you're living with. And we'll kind of get into that in just a little bit. But he actually was a gambler. So he was probably about $130,000 in the hole, between student loans. And like I said, he was gambling all the time. And I kind of want to say, in my opinion, like I said, I've watched the movie, I've done some research. I feel like he was taking the loans that he was taking out for school, and he was trying to, clearly make more money, put it in the account, pay for this rent, so on and so forth. Um, I kind of took some notes. So, like I said, he was a brilliant guy, so that just became a little odd. So, anyways, um, like I said, he was planning on getting married to Megan McAllister on August 14th in 2009. So, clearly they were planning a wedding, and he had everything going for him. He was gonna be a doctor. His soon to be wife was gonna be a doctor. Um, like I said, he was in the top of his class, in med school. So you would assume that he would have just kept going and kept going. So, anyways, how he became the Craigslist killer. Now, we've all gone online before. We have probably, I know that now on Craigslist because I did take a gander at it today. Um, they do happen to have took this exotic part out of Craigslist. I want to say or men seeking women, or basically a dating website, or I can't say a dating website, but you can meet people on there for any kind of services. Even to this day, you can still have any kind of services that you want on Craigslist, whether it be buying a car, whether it be a job. There's like rants and raves. Those are my favorites. To be honest, I don't really know why they are today. It was just kind of my favorite. Also, I mean, you could find any kind of services there. Just kind of like the dating apps that they have now. Not that I'm using those by any means. Um, but I will tell you this: if I was, I would be petrified. So we have Marketplace on Facebook. Whether something be well, I mean, not you can get it shipped to you clearly for a fee of some sort, or you can meet up, and then you should always meet up in a public place. But unfortunately, back then, everybody was meeting each other in hotels. I don't know, wherever they were meeting each other. Um, so what happened is he went ahead and started basically on Craigslist going ahead, and I'm just gonna say this because it just is what it is. He was basically trying to meet sex workers, like for an exotic massage or a lap dance or whatever else. Let your imagination go with that. So, anyways, he was finding these women, and let's be honest, how often are police going to take these sex workers? How many? They're not going to really report them if there is technically a crime, and even if they do report it, some cops are just going to say, "Well, that's your problem." You know what I mean? Because they are sex workers. Um. So, anyways, he went ahead. He was, and I'm gonna say this because that's how it was kind of listed on Craigslist. He was actually exchanging several messages with someone who back then, and I'm saying back then, was labeled as a transvestite. I know that there's a different term for that now, but back then that's what it technically was. It was actually technically male for T. So basically that meant that there was a male looking for a transvestite or vice versa. And he was using the email address sex addict 5385. And it doesn't matter if it was Yahoo or whatever. I'm not going to give that out. But he was also sending really explicit photos to these guys, girls, anybody. But he was also, again, looking for males, but at the same time, he would never meet up with them. But I think he thought that it would be easier. Now, in 2029, he started using a different email address. Why? I do not know, but hey, teach their own. I only have one, but to these days everybody's got everything. Um and then he actually posted as a female one time to see if there was anything that he could see if anybody would contact him, I should say. So, but let's talk about him becoming the actual Craigslist killer. On April 13th, 2009, he responded to an ad on Craigslist under the erotic service. That's what technically it was called, erotic services selection. But now it's changed. I mean, they changed it to adult services. Now they don't even have that. I did check because I'm weird like that. So later in 2010, Craigslist removed the adult service platform altogether. So, mind you, he first started out, first off, he killed Julissa Brisman. Technically, he was just robbing these women. And like there was two more robberies before that, but I really want to talk about Julissa Brisman. Now, she was the second one that he supposedly tried to rob. Unfortunately, he had a gun. He thought that he would just tie her up with zip ties in the bathroom, put some tape on her mouth. Now, mind you, this is in a hotel room. Why she was in, I mean, I guess parents don't look, they're just like, oh, yes, okay, just go in a hotel room with somebody you don't know. But they all described him as this American boy that they were kind of relieved. But that's okay. We're gonna go back to Jalissa. So he thought that was very easily. He was just gonna take her ATM card, he was gonna take her cash, he was gonna take it all. But unfortunately, she put up a fight. She scratched him on the neck. He did kind of take his gun, beat her with it. Fractured her skull, and then shot her 3 times. She was still alive, and she made it out to the hallway. As he was leaving, when she got to the hospital, she passed away. Which, that was his only killing. Now, before that, and I can't recall her name, he went into a hotel room and did the same thing, but he was robbing them. He was tying them up with zip ties. He was putting tape on their mouths and basically just robbing them, taking their money. He was taking their debit cards, their credit cards, any cash that they may have. Then we had another one right after he killed Jalissa. I'm having a hard time saying her name tonight. And he went ahead and she was only giving lap dances. But unfortunately, there was a little bit of a ruckus going on, and her husband comes in, tries to beat the crap out of him. And he just kind of walked away. Okay. So as he's leaving, you got to remember most hotel lobbies at that point still had cameras. So he wasn't trying to disguise himself anyways. One time he could wear like a, Boston's hat, and the other times he just walking out of there just playing on his phone like it was nothing. So, of course, this sends everybody into an uproar because they're like, oh, meeting people online, all that jazz. So, he takes tokens from these women. And this is where I find this very odd. He's taking underwear. Now, they find 22 pairs of underwear underneath his mattress. Makes me wonder, like, if they didn't flip their mattress, sometimes. I don't know. I do it. I flip my mattress, so I know exactly what's under there, so I could be hiding anything under there. But anyways, he was also took out a book, Grey's Anatomy book, because remember, he is a med student. He hollowed it out to put his gun in there. I mean, and those are thick college books. So, I mean, it could only take a matter of how long to even cut that open. So, I guess my question is, and maybe somebody can answer it, I don't know. Um, there really wasn't the only motive that I could think that he really, killed somebody, he was robbing these people, was basically money. I think he was broke or the thrill of it, or maybe he was bored. But like I said, he had everything going for him. He was going to get married in like 4 months. I mean, after like the first killing. Um he had to have, I mean, if you're going to collect that amount of underwear, it makes you kind of wonder how many other people have went ahead and he's done the same things too, but they didn't come forward. And that's what I'm saying, like, again, cops at that they're sex workers. They're not gonna at that point, they didn't wanna come forward. So, anyways, sorry, I took some notes. Um, where do I do that? But here's they kind of were looking at this guy, obviously, because they're only looking for a very tall, what was he, like, 6'1", 6'2", somewhere in there? Blonde, kinda husky, nice looking guy. That could have been anybody in Boston. So, they went ahead, plastered all this stuff all over, was on the news. Now here's where the crazy part is. If I could see my husband on the news and be like, "Mhm, that's my husband. He's committing crimes," which he's not doing. But I'm just saying, I'm trying to figure out how Megan McAllister could be that naive, and you cannot tell me that she did not see any resemblance towards this guy that she's watching on the news. That's another problem. Um that in itself is just kind of weird. So here's where they started catching him, and he was a very sloppy person from anyways. Now he was trying to use track phones, but he was wearing gloves when he's like killing and robbing these people, but he also wanted to take his number off their cell phones. But now they make those gloves where you can use your touchscreen phone with your gloves on so your hands don't get cold. I mean, I have a pair of those for the winter time. That way I can still text or whatnot. But he'd have to take his gloves off, so his fingerprints are still all over that phone. That makes absolutely no sense. So anyways, how they thought they caught him. Well, they did catch him. So he went ahead and they kind of were doing surveillance because they could figure out where the IP address was coming from. I'm not sure. I'm not computer savvy. Can barely get on here sometimes. But anyways, they found out where the IP address was coming from. They've seen him leave the building. So what they were doing is because they had these fingerprints. So they were following him into like stores and like shopping carts and everything that he was touching. And they had somebody right behind, well, kind of right behind him, following him into like stores. So everything he was touching and putting back, somebody was right there putting it basically in a bag, if you say, just to try to get these fingerprints and try to get the best possible one. And I think it was Target. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. I'm just going to say Target because I like Target. So, anyways, he has a shopping cart. One of the agents who's following him is like, "Oh, I need a cart." And he's like, "Oh, here you go." There we go. Now we got fingerprints. Now they know if it's the guy that they're working, or if this is the guy that they're, claiming is the Craigslist killer. So they have all this jazz now, all fine and dandy. So you could tell I haven't done a radio show about myself in a while. Anyways, so anyways, him and Megan McAllister decide that they are going to go ahead and go to Connecticut for some kind of gambling thing. Like I said, he was a gambler. He always was always gambling. He was in debt. So he kind of, I think, kind of knew that they were catching on to him because he was starting to get paranoid. As they were leaving, we have to remember after they hit the state line, Boston can't take them down. Then they're Connecticut's problem, and there's nothing that they could have done. So they had to hurry up, try to have one of these ladies who he robbed hurry up, get one of those. I can't remember what they're called. Those little photo things. Like, oh, is this the person? It'll come to me in a second. So she picked him out from a lineup. That's what it was. A little picture lineup. Said it was him because the cops were following them. They get pulled over. He gets arrested. She's claiming that because obviously he's with Megan McAllister. And she's claiming, oh, no, they got the wrong guy. This was a huge misunderstanding. So, mind you, she can't go back to her apartment. She she kind of has that stand by your man type thing. But they did think that at one point that she was kind of in on it. But after doing some interviews and everything else, they found out that she technically was not in on it whatsoever. So they had to cut her loose. And then she clearly did a statement stating that he was the most gentle soul. They have the wrong guy. He would never hurt a fly. Everybody knows that the Boston police are like the worst. I mean, it just went on and on and on. So, anyways, now he's sitting there. And I just want to let everybody know that we are going to talk about some suicide. So if that is um, an issue for you, I'm sorry. I'll try not to go into great detail. But I mean, because it is a trigger warning there, and I understand that. So, anyways, she's like stand by your man type thing. The Boston police come a couple days later, and they were asking her all these questions like, do you know if this describes your boyfriend? I mean, he's into bondage according to what they're finding on his laptop, because they did confiscate his laptop while they were there. They were showing her pictures of what he was sending other people because she was sleeping and he was in the bathroom or wherever, kitchen, who knows where, taking selfies of parts of your body that nobody should be sending anything. Okay. But like I said, it was just kind of one of those things. So of course it was still stand by your man type thing. So anyways, he pleaded guilty, obviously, when he went to court. I mean, they got all this evidence stacked against him. I mean, they found the murder weapons. Again, all this underwear that wasn't even his fiance's underwear. Because as the profile went on, when the cops put a profile together, they said that it was somebody who was an outcast. I mean, the list went on, and it did not describe Philip Markoff at all because, like I said, he was brilliant in the medical field. A medical student. He was bright. Yeah, but like I said, that was a lot of underwear, a women's underwear that were found under that mattress. And that in itself is crazy. So Megan McAllister goes into this, prison to visit him because obviously, well, her and her mom did, I will say, because when he first got there, he took shoelaces and he tried to hang himself with shoelaces. Luckily, they got him in time, so that was fine. So when Megan and her mom went to go visit him for the first and last time, he had to wear this wasn't your regular outfit. It was kind of like a robe type thing. I don't know, plastic robe, something on that order, so he couldn't hurt himself. She basically broke off the engagements because obviously they're not getting married. She knew. She asked him about everything that was found in that apartment, and he didn't really deny it, but he didn't really come clean with it. He had his own theory on whatever. And like I said, she's claiming that it was the wrong guy. Butch gave back the ring. She didn't want any more to do with him. So probably after that, he went ahead, stuffed toilet paper down his actually just stuffed it in his mouth, cut an artery of some sort, I'm assuming, or I can't remember what he cut, but he's a medical student. He would know exactly what to cut. Then decided that he was going to scatter all of her pictures all around his cell and wrote her name on the cell wall, mind you, in his blood, and a message pocket, which is some kind of nickname. As far as like the Lifetime movie went, it was just kind of one of those. We're not sure exactly what pocket even meant. Like I said, it was kind of like a nickname. But if you watch Lifetime movie, which just because it says it's based on a true story, doesn't necessarily mean that everything in there was accurate. But I guess her hands would get cold, and the sweatshirts that they have had pockets in it. So she just put her hands in there. And he said when he was little, his mom did it to warm his hands up. So he said, I'm going to start calling you Pocket. Whether that be true or not, I don't know. But he wrote Pocket on there. And then he put a plastic bag over his head. And like I said, toilet paper in his mouth so they could not resuscitate him, which would have been a year and a couple days to a wedding anniversary that he should have had. But the kicker was, and I did forget to say this, his shoes that he was wearing when he got arrested had Jalissa's blood on them. I mean, he was still wearing them. I mean, if you're going to kill somebody, you would assume you would make sure that, like, your shoes didn't have blood on them. Like I said, that's why they considered him sloppy, is because his fingerprints were all over somebody's cell phone. Blood on his shoes. He's not disguising himself. Besides, I think like one time, and he constantly touched stuff, constantly. And he disguised himself like one time with a baseball cap. But other than that, catched him on video, plain as day. Like I said, that's why I find it very odd that his fiance didn't catch that on the news. But anyways, so obviously he committed suicide in that cell. And like I said, they couldn't resuscitate him. So that gave none of his victims any justice whatsoever. Not even Jalissa's, you know, mom, after she passed. But again, that's why it's such an important thing not to meet people online or meet people in hotel rooms or any of that. And it's a good thing that Craigslist did take that down. But he wasn't the only Craigslist killer. This isn't the only time somebody has been accused of killing people that they've met online. Honestly, this just became bigger. Um, because it seemed like he had, like, this kind of MO, like, he had to have sex workers. That made it easier for him because not everything would have been documented. Not everybody they wouldn't have I wouldn't say documented, but a lot of them wouldn't have come forward. And like I said, he was sloppy. I mean, how do you if you're gonna start killing people or you're gonna start tying them up, but here's where I'm having a little bit of an issue. Like, zip ties are sold at the store in the same package. Like, I could go get a bunch of zip ties and get tape, and you could be right behind me and get the same thing, and I could commit a crime with those, but they sell a crap load of those zip ties. But I do know that he was buying those track phones and then only using them for a little bit. But I mean, if he was so brilliant, he had to have known that they're going to catch him one way or another with your IP address. Like I said, they interviewed all of his friends, and not all of them said like he had a gambling problem. He was a lot of fun. They didn't see any of this coming, which I did find weird. But we could go back and forth about was he stressed? But stress doesn't make you want to kill people. I get stressed all the time, but it doesn't make me want to kill somebody. But I really do believe that he was in a lot of debt and it was a lot easier to rob somebody. But then if he had a gambling problem, Megan McAllister had to have known that he had a gambling problem if he's always at the casino, but he was always saying he's a med student. So, he could have said, I went to study groups. There was a time that he hit on one of his friends because he was so drunk. And I've never been to a casino, so I couldn't tell you that if they give out free alcohol or I have no idea. I don't know how exactly that works, but if he was drinking there, like I said, he went to Rhode Island for one of these attempts on somebody. So it wasn't just in the Boston area. So, like I said, Megan McAllister these days, I will tell you, she went on to become a doctor. I looked her up. She is actually a doctor in Naperville. She went ahead and decided to do that. But I do know that she wanted to take a break from school because they did not technically get into the same college. I kind of want to do a little background on her because she came from a pretty wealthy family. Um, so that way, I'm not sure why he had to steal, why they decided to move in together and he decided to steal. Then he was, behind on rent. And she couldn't figure that one out. I mean, if they were sharing an account and she was trying to take out cash, it was like overdrawn. He's like, "Oh, yes, I'm supposed to get a check." You mean you're going ahead and you're robbing people. But I guess to me, to this day, if I were to get robbed, especially if somebody is going to take my ATM card, I'll be the first one to admit half the time I'm leaving it in Matt's car or heck, I don't even know. I think I gave it to my niece today. I don't even think I got it back. But what I'm saying is the first thing you're gonna do is most ATMs have cameras. So the only from what I'm understanding, the only way that they caught this guy was basically through cameras at the hotels. But Jalissa's mom, I guess Jalissa had a drug problem. She was trying to get her life together, to be honest with you. Because I mean, she did lose her life and that really does suck. And I'm glad she did put up a fight. But as an adult, because I mean, she's 26 years old, you think that you would know better than to go into a hotel. And I'm not trying to blame any victim here by any means. I'm just saying we should all know not to go into a hotel room with somebody you don't know and advertise services like this. I mean, that's a lot for somebody. I mean, getting on their feet and like I said, all that underwear and he was taking it. And then on top of it, the random IDs that he had, he went by different names. especially to buy a gun. I mean, now it's harder to buy a gun, clearly, but he went by different aliases. So they're finding all this stuff, and it's just kind of, I would have just randomly said, okay, well, he took my ATM card. Now I need to go, or my credit cards, and I need to stop those. So naturally, you think that if he's at these ATMs and they're drawing out money, they're going to obviously know. But I feel like some of it's, when you're going to buy a gun, you're going to buy zip ties, you're going to buy, tape. They're gonna, I mean, that just raises some questions all in itself, period. I mean, could you imagine going up to the register and be like, "Oh, this is for a project. All these fake phones and zip ties and, you know, tape." I would have I would have called the cops and been like, "I don't know what this guy's doing, but it's not normal." Because who's gonna buy that many um track phones, honestly? Not many people. But, like, I'm glad Craigslist did take down their service things, exotic services. Now you can just go with the rants and the raves. Those are kind of funny. Um, but we still have a lot of people that are meeting each other online these days, and you have to be careful, whether it be meeting somebody in a public place. And I know that there's a lot of dating apps out there, and you have to be careful because you don't know what you can get yourself into. Nobody wants to, be robbed or killed or all of that jazz. But like I said, she did do that whole stand by, or Megan McAllister did do that whole stand by your man thing. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. But honestly, I'm not saying that she's dumb because she's not, but I just don't understand how she didn't know that her fiance, like, how do you know? I mean, what happens if she had to use that same book? They were both in med school, and she opened up that Grey's Anatomy book and be like, "Oh, there's a gun here." Like, she couldn't be that naive. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think she could have been that naive. But I guess when you're really in love with somebody, you may kind of look past that. But like I said, it was on the news. And I mean, they have video footage that they broadcasted. One time he's wearing this ball cap and the next time he's not wearing any ball cap. Um, so that makes a huge difference. But she really did believe that he was not the Craigslist killer, and I'm just kind of like, I can't find any information on this. Why I mean, besides the fact that he did plead guilty, probably because they found all that stuff, I think that when it came down to it, because she couldn't go back to her apartment, and they were already at her parents' house asking if she knew about this, and she knew about this, and there were some other things. Um, but we're talking about a guy who basically maybe wanted to explore his sexuality and maybe didn't know how to go about it in away, or maybe it was just the fact that he just did wanna rob people. I guess it's just I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're in gambling debt, um, but like I said, in May, the wedding was called off. Um, yeah, they canceled their wedding in August 2010. He committed suicide in jail. And I feel like how can I put this? He was a med student. They should have been a little bit more careful with the stuff that they did give him because I believe that his victims did deserve some kind of justice, especially Jalissa's. I'm not saying that the people that he robbed didn't deserve it or didn't deserve justice because they did as well. But I feel like he just kind of copped out of that. Like, just give us the answer on why you did what you did if you were in that much debt. And let's be honest, a medical school's got to be expensive, but by the time he would have been done, he would have been able to pay the I mean, it would have taken him a little bit, but he would have been able to pay that off, and he would have probably been sitting at the beach, with his wife, kids, and he could threw it all away just to rob people. Um, but like I said, I do believe she did play that. Megan McAllister kind of did play that role as far as she didn't know what was going on, but she was kind of naive in that aspect. So I know we've only been into this conversation for 40 minutes. Um, and like I said, I don't have my sidekick here, so it's kind of hard to talk about something and not have the other person tell you, you know, ask questions, agree with you, so on and so forth. But I know it is Thanksgiving, so I will go ahead and I'll cut this a little short by 20 minutes. Well, usually about 5 minutes. I will not be on next week. I'm not sure if Ashley will be on next week. And I know it's Thanksgiving, and I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving with your family. So I will not see you guys next week. Maybe Ashley will, maybe not. I know she's in the middle of a lot going on too. So if not, we will see you guys the following week. But I hope you guys had a great night, and thank you for sitting and listening to me and saying 1,000 times.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.